So we started coming to El Cielito like what, about a year ago? I'm not sure. The first thing that got my attention was the fact that it was all like Latin American based or themed drinks. So I remember seeing it and I was like, I have to try it. Of course, I brought beer along with me. And I don't even remember like what's the first drink we tried, but I remember we instantly like really liked it. And I even have like the Yelp review, like the first ever Yelp review that I did here. And then ever since, it was just like our weekend thing. So we often come on Sundays and we get coffee because that's like our weekly routine. So I'm here with Danny from El Cielito, and today we're going to learn a little bit about him and the coffee shop and what it means and how it's a representation of the Latino or Latinx community here in Southeast LA. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came up with the concept of El Cielito.
Yeah, totally. So basically the whole inception of the concept of El Cielito was just like my childhood. I grew up in Echo Park. And in Echo Park, there's like this cool little, like these small little areas. I grew up in historic Filipino town, which, yeah, given the name, there was a lot of Filipinos. So it was mostly Mexicans, Filipinos, and Cubans. I went to the high school that divided us between the Mexicans and the Central Americans. So that's when I started meeting like a lot of my friends, well now friends that are like, you know, Guatemalans, Salvadorians, Hondurans. I remember like going with them to like different shops and different spots, and we would go in my neighborhood because my mom was super strict. So we'd go to my neighborhood and they would just see like all this, like these Mexican shops, and they're like, all this food is cool, all this stuff is cool, but I don't really see anything I can relate to. We end up like getting our neighborhood gentrified and changed up, and Blue Bottle came in. That was one of the first that changed it. I remember going by myself to check out the coffee, and I see there was coffee from El Salvador, and I was like, my homies are gonna love this, bro. So I go back and school the next day, and I tell them like, hey, did you guys know El Salvador grew coffee? And they kind of look at them like I just slapped them, you know? Like they're like, of course we know. Like we grew up in the fincas and all this stuff, and I was just like, man, like that's kind of crazy how there's no other coffee shops that are serving their coffee or representing them, but yet they're making a killing off of it because people were there. Like it was the grand opening, it was crazy. So that kind of started like a concept of me wanting to own a shop eventually. I was only like 17. Eventually to like, you know, have representation of all these cultures and not just like exploit them, like actually represent them.
How did you go from this idea to actually starting your own coffee shop? Like, did you have experience before this, or like what did you do before this, and how did you transition into building your own coffee shop to give that representation?
Yeah, well, first I needed to learn coffee. Like that was a big one. The only thing we had before Blue Bottle was Starbucks, and I was there like all the time. So I thought I knew coffee. I started working at like small little coffee shop jobs, but the ones that were there, they just wanted experience, so I never really got like on bar kind of stuff. I remember seeing that there was a coffee shop in, a coffee academy in San Diego, and I didn't have any money at the time. I told my dad, I was like, hey, there's a coffee academy, I want to go. And he was like, yeah, sure, like I'll let you borrow money so you can go down and go. When I was gonna go like sign up for it, I see that Tierra Mia was hiring. So I was like, yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply for Tierra Mia, and I'm gonna like try and work there, and just in case I don't get into the academy. So I ended up getting accepted to the academy, but I never got the call from Tierra Mia. So I drive down to San Diego, unpack my bags in the hotel, and then I get the call from Tierra Mia like, hey, you're hired. And I was like, well, I'm kind of stuck in San Diego for like 2 weeks. And I was like, you guys are too late. So I told them that like I'm gonna learn coffee, so they're not gonna spend any money training me. So I was like, if I could have my job when I come back, that'd be cool. Yeah, so they said that was cool. When I come back, I work in Tierra Mia, and then that's how I kind of like, I was like, I know all this stuff. Like the lady was teaching me, the manager, and I was like, nah, I'm good. Like just give me hours, bro. So inside of Tierra Mia, I learned the coffee and culture kind of combination. And then outside, it was just like, all right, like I'm Mexican myself, but like the whole idea of this was to start representing other countries. So yeah, so that's when I was like, I need to tie the other cultures together with that.
After Tierra Mia, like what made you take that leap of faith to opening up your own coffee shop? And did you have any like business experience? Because I know besides like coffee, you need to have some type of business experience to figure out all that logistics. So what made you decide, to just go for it? I know you mentioned school earlier, so were
Yeah.
you still in school, or had you just like completely finished your coffee shop or your coffee experience at the Academy and
Yeah.
then decided to just open your coffee shop? What was that transition like?
Well, just background, like my parents, like my mom is very scholastic, like she's like school's the number one thing, and my dad is very entrepreneurial, so my dad's like, yeah, fuck school, you know? So so when I was in Cal State LA, so I was in, yeah, so I was in Cal State LA and I was like still figuring stuff out, so I wasn't going to class and stuff like that. And I remember going to like the Office of Business, right? Because I wanted to declare a major, which is business. And I declare the major and I get into business school, and like that same week I drop out, and I was like it was just what I wanted to do. And then I was like, I dropped out and I was like, you know what, I'm not like, fuck this. Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, I had like boxing money, and then I had money that I had like saved up from, you know, Tierra Mia, and just like I was.
So just a side note, he is also training in boxing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
that's how he gets his little side money.
Yeah, so there's that, and then I used to write people's papers for money. So
Where were you when I knew you?
Then I realized like a coffee business was way more expensive than I thought. So I borrowed money from my dad for like equipment and things of that sort. And then once everything was together, like I told my mom, like, I'm out of school. Like she had told me like the first words that came out of her mouth was, if you don't go to school, you get out of my house. So I was like, yeah. So I was like, oh shit. So that's the reason why I was in school. But yeah, so I go and I start the business, and I had like no like business knowledge. Obviously and evidently the business was super slow the first year because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I used that time of it being slow here to read, learn, watch YouTube videos, things of that sort, and that kind of, yeah.
Was there ever a point where you just wanted to give up and just be like, this is not gonna work out?
Yeah, man. There was like 3 major times where I was just like, fuck this. Like I'm still in shape. I can still go back to boxing, you know. And the first time was when I was like 6 months in, which is super impatient of me, but no, it was slow. We were making no money. I was just like, you know what, like I should have stayed in school. I should have stayed in boxing. The other time was we were about like a year and a half, and we had gotten some issues where they were like, we were getting good customers and business was picking up, but like a lot of people have a lot of complaints and a lot of opinions, and so I'm used to punches, I'm not used to words. So I would see these things,
It
and
hit different.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd be like, oh fuck, like people would be like, you need to do this, you need to do that, or this coffee shop isn't as good as Starbucks or Tierra Mia, and I'd be like, yo, that shit hurted.
Yeah.
The other time was when it was just recently too, where literally like all my bills hit like at once, like major government bills, but I'm still here.
Since we're speaking of problems and different things that can go wrong or things that you don't like really see coming, we're really curious to know how you feel when big corporate coffee shops such as Starbucks or others commercialize traditional drinks.
It's so weird because it's like there's like this double-edged sword, right? Where it's like you want to be represented and you want your people to be represented, but it's like you don't want it to be exploited. And it's like there's that thin line where it's like, okay, where are you exploiting and where are you representing us? Because when I went to like, you know, to Starbucks to try out their marzipan, like people couldn't pronounce it. They were just like the marzipan, marzipan, and I was just like, all right, like let's take that back. Again, it's that double-edged sword where it's like we're making an impact where that, you know, big corporations see us and they're like, okay, like this is getting popular, let's take it. So it's cool saying that it's popular, but it's like they go, let's take it and let's exploit it because it's popular, and you're like, all right, like where do we win, you know?
Yeah. And going back to the whole business aspect of it, and I know you've encountered issues, if you could start at Cielito over, what would you do different?
I think the main thing was with Cielito was that I started it way too fast. And then there's people that they ask me about their like starting up their own shop and things of that sort, and that's the kind of thing that I give them advice where it's like don't start too fast. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do before you actually open your brick and mortar. I think what I would have wanted like have done would be like pop-ups first, you know. Yeah, it's a little bit too what's a little difficult in like setting up your stuff and things of that sort, but again, I didn't have like a social media presence.
Yeah.
So when I opened up, it was just like, who the fuck is this guy? You know,
Yeah.
like, so I would have, and I've seen it from other like food spots where it's like they build up this profile and this social media presence where it's like they open up shop and they already have like 12,000 followers, you know, and then that support like comes already in kind of like I did it differently where it was just like I opened up and I had to build up that way, which is cool too, but it's just expensive. Like,
And a little harder.
it's way more difficult.
Within this area, HP, Southgate, there are many coffee shops around here. So
Yeah.
how do you make yourself stand out? And what do you think makes El Cielito different from all the others that surround you?
I think what separates us most is like the like dedication that we have to the culture, you know, and also like the kind of meticulous way that we have of like getting coffee, because anyone and their moms can have an espresso machine and things of that sort, but it's like, do you know what you're selling?
Yeah.
Do you know where it's coming from? Does your coffee have a personality? And I feel like that's what it is with us. Like the coffee has a personality as just like a regular black coffee or just like as like a flavored coffee. Another thing though too is that like the flavors that we have, they're all like authentic ingredients. So most people like they'll throw horchata powder in and things of that stuff. But then with us, it's like it's actual like raw, real ingredients, like the café de olla that you like. It's like we brew the té de canela like every day, and we make sure that it's like hot, and we make sure the flavor is there, things of that sort. And there's other people that like there's already like té de canela that's already like you buy it in the stores and it's like and things of that sort. But also the message, I feel like the message we have is totally different in the sense where people are just like, yeah, we have coffee and we're gonna like help you go about your day. But with us, it's like we're gonna help you go about your day, but we're gonna also help where you come from. You know,
Yeah.
like that's the key.
Cool. So I have a couple more questions now that you touched on it.
Go for it.
Tell us about your experience working directly with the coffee farms in the Latin American countries.
At first, I was getting a lot of like shit for it, basically, because it's not the convenient and it's not the cheapest and it's not like the like fastest way and most profitable way to do things. But I mean, like when you keep it real, it obviously like it's gonna pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
When I had first started, I wasn't roasting, so I didn't know anything really much about like coffee. The only thing I knew were what the roasters were feeding me. And then I bought out a roasting company and then I started roasting, and I was going to importers and I didn't know anything, just like what the importers were feeding me.
Yeah.
And it was super weird because it was mostly, you know, non-Latino people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would buy coffees from them like Mexico, things of that sort.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, yeah, like this coffee from Mexico, Oaxaca. Is yeah, it's like, yeah, like they have this, and I'm just like, all right, bro, like I get it. So I would get the coffee from them because again, it was the most profitable, most convenient,
Yeah.
things of that sort. But I want to work directly with the people I know and the
Yeah.
people I can do this stuff with. And the first, it's weird because it's like the weird law of attraction, if you believe it, that at work with the universe and stuff. Was I was here at the shop and some guy was like, well, my barista was here and he was like, hey, some guy's waiting for you at the table over there. So I go and he looks like this white dude, right? So I go and I sit, and then the guy's just like giving me his pitch, but he's super nervous. So he throws coffee on the table and he's like, hey man, my dad owns a farm in Nicaragua. Do you want to work? Like super fast. He's like, do you want to work with me? And I was like, oh, I was like, all right, man, slow down. And yeah, so he was Nicaragua. Well, he's Nicaraguan Argentinian. And I was like, all right, that explains the looks. And he was telling me that his dad owns a farm in Nicaragua, and the farm was going through some troubles and financial troubles, and like he was here to help his dad out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, literally, I was like, this is what I wanted, you know, like
Perfect timing.
exactly, like
perfect
everything,
opportunity.
yeah, like totally. I was like, all right, perfect. So he hands me the bag, I open the bag, and it's really burnt bad fucking beans. And I was like, shit, man, it was almost perfect. Like I asked him, I was like, well, who's your roaster? And he said he got this you know those lottery things with the ping pong balls?
Oh, yeah.
So he had one, he put it on top of a barbecue grill and he was roasting that way. And I was like, this dude's incredible. Like crazy, right? But I was like, but I can't take that roast. Like,
A burnt roast.
yeah, it was super burnt, like super bad. And I asked him, I was like, do you have any green beans from your father's farm?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. And he goes, it's even better for me because we could move those way better than we can move the roasted ones. And I was like, there it is. I need green beans, you know? So we established that. And this was like a couple months after I bought out the roastery. So I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so then I started saying, all right, so we have that directly from the farm. And we kept pushing that message out just over and over. And so that attracted more of these farmers. And then it was just until like, I think earlier this year, where we got the Guatemalan farmers and the Salvadoran farmers. Like so it was super crazy. Like the Guatemalan farmers actually got lost. Like they were on their way to another coffee shop and they saw this one and they're like, oh shit, they sell
God.
So they come in and we're talking, and then we grew up like maybe about 3 blocks away from each other. And I'm like, and now we're here. Yeah, so it's super wild. And then the Salvadoran farmers are actually they live like a block away from the boxing gym that Carlos Morales' gym. So I'm like, what the, like everything's super
Everything's coming together.
yeah. The problem that I started encountering now is that like they don't have representatives here. So the representatives that are here, they're either like business partners or the farm workers, but they live around here.
Yeah.
They're either their family, things of that sort. But I just recently got contacted by Colombia and Honduras, and they're like, hey, like we want to sell directly to you.
Yeah.
We just don't know how to handle everything. And I'm just like, I don't know how to handle like shipping anything either, but usually
figure it out.
Yeah. So yeah, we have like Colombia and Honduras on the way, but it's like directly, and it's super crazy because I keep getting invited to the farms, right? Because a lot of these farm owners, they want to meet me. Just super cool, and it's like an honor, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm extremely scared of airplanes, so I'm like,
Oh my God! You'll have to come with us. You can sit between us.
I'm like super scared. Like I can't handle airplanes. Yeah, it's like yeah, like I can't. So they're just like, yeah, you should come to El Salvador. I'm just like, oh yeah, totally. And then I'm just
Maybe
like,
one day.
yeah, I'm just like, yeah, when I'm.
No, you have to. All right. Well, maybe in the next interview, you've already like gone. And
Yeah,
come back, and
stout
then we can
passport
talk
and
about
everything.
That.
I'm-
You'll get over the fear. So now let's talk about you. What's your favorite type of coffee and why?
My coffee nerd's gonna show off right now. There's different like roasts, right? So we're gonna break that down easier with the roast. So when the lighter the roast you get, like the more coffee you have. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the darker the roast, the more like the
I'm
less
out
like
here
coffee.
ordering my dad blondes, and that's lighter, so that
Yeah.
means I'm like caffeinating him.
Yeah, well, basically, cause you think of it like cooking,
Yeah.
right? So I always like to use the analogy in the comparison of steak, right? So if you cook a steak rare, it's gonna have like the juice and like the flavor and stuff like that. You cook it well done, it's just gonna taste like burnt, right? What happens is with all these like commercial people like Starbucks and Nescafe and everything, it's cheaper to make darker coffee the same way it's like cheaper to make like well done steak in the sense where it's like you get a really shitty steak and just burn it and someone's like, yeah, it tastes like meat. Like I love steak. Same with coffee. So you can buy really shitty coffee and you just burn it, so all you taste is like the burnt, and you're like, okay, I'm tasting coffee. Yeah, like the rich flavor. When it comes to like coffee, it's when you're roasting it, it starts off as a seed, right? It's a green little seed, and it's super packed with like what a plant needs to grow, right? So it's got like moisture content, water in it, nutrients, and then it's got like the caffeine in the water content. So you want to keep that in there if you want most of the caffeine. So the less time you spend cooking it and the water getting evaporated out, the more caffeine is in there because less of that shit escaped. You know? I shouldn't have said that shit, but yeah, that good stuff escaped. Then there's different like caffeine varietals, and then there's different coffee countries and things of that sort. So to make the question, like the answer a little easier, I really enjoy El Salvador coffee in a medium roast. Yeah.
Bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, I love El Salvador coffee. Like that's the thing. But Guatemala's a close second.
What's so special about it for you?
So so El Salvador is just like, it's literally like the perfect location for coffee. It's basically a country on that volcano, right? It's got that huge volcano. So that volcano, what it allowed a lot of that soil to be like kind of alkaloid and like metallic.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So it's like super rich, and what that does is that allows the coffee to be very fruitful. Like it allows it to kind of get like these fruit notes and these like very, we call them lively notes. And then what it also needs is elevation, and El Salvador just so happens to have like that, you know, yeah, the highest elevation. The temperature is like this cool microclimate of like humidity, and like the sun doesn't hit it directly, the sun kind of hits it at an angle, which is again perfect for coffee. So it grows, yeah, like very well. And then again, that kind of feeds into like the whole concept of Cielito, was that El Salvador grows amazing coffee and it's expensive and it exports a lot, but you couldn't tell by looking at the country. Like you look at it and it's not like, oh, that's not a country that exports billions of dollars of coffee, you know? So working directly with the farms allows me to kind of do that, to give back to the, and hopefully everyone does. So El Salvador is my favorite, especially when it's medium roasted, you get a lot of the flavor notes. And if I were to do an espresso, it would most likely be Brazil. I just love coffee though. It's like children, I love them all.
Cool. So now we want to know a little bit about what you think El Cielito represents for the community, and what does it represent for you?
I feel it just represents like the true power of like perseverance and like people coming together. You know, like that's what it's super crazy, because again, given my background in boxing, right? It's like you're the only guy in that ring, so you fight it, and then you live the glory and stuff like that. It's cool, but it's a totally different feeling when it's like the people coming together and like all feeling that glory. Because a lot of this coffee, like I wouldn't be able to have it if it wasn't for people offering their help. And it's crazy. It's crazy seeing like the kind of like impact that like a lot of people can make when they come together and they actually start like doing shit, you know?
And what's in store for Cielito's future? Like, what do you see in the next couple years? Are there any goals you want to achieve? Like, where do you see this going?
Well, like,
it's staying the same, or just like growing, or do you want to have 100 of Cielitos?
Yeah, I mean, the goal was, and then again, it ties back to the whole being like young when I first started and ambitious, was I wanted like 1 million, you know? Like, I just want 100. I want to, you know, rival with Starbucks, you know, and box the CEO. But now it's just like I want to have Cielitos where it'll be impactful, you know,
where it makes sense.
Yeah, where it'll be like cultural and where people can have that safe spot. Because I honestly think like the whole safe spot of this is kind of like just like that feeling of like I lost my home to gentrification, you know, like in the sense where like my neighborhood's gone, so it's like I really don't want other people to like have to like experience that. Like Echo Park didn't have that unity in the sense where like it was hard to break up. It was just like someone came in, it's like I'm gonna buy this house, and then I'm gonna buy this house, and then just expand. No one fought it, and right here they fight it like crazy. It's super cool. But yeah, I want to have it in places where people can actually relate to stuff and enjoy it. Because I mean, non-Latino people have Starbucks and they have their other like corporate coffee chains that they could go to, but what would be the point for me to have El Salvador and Guatemala and then sell it to a non-Latino dude? It's just coffee to him, you know? So I want to have, well, lots of Cielitos, but in areas that it can impact and it can actually make a difference.
And what people actually appreciate.
Yeah, we actually care. They're from there even better.
Thank you so much for sitting here with us and sharing your story and telling us a little bit more about El Cielito. As you all know, we love it here and we'll continue to support you. Yeah,
so El Cielito Café on 8015 Long Beach Boulevard. We're in the border of Southgate and Huntington Park, right where La Pacific ends.